Welcome everyone to the Wednesday edition of our Packers News live chat alongside Ryan Wood. I am Olivia Reiner. The Packers hit the practice field for day 5 of OTAs. We'll bring you the latest on what went down today in just a moment. However, before we get into that, as always, you know the drill. You can be a part of our conversation. If you're over on Facebook, Periscope, or YouTube, leave us a question down in the chat. Ryan and I always love to hear from you. We'll get to some of your thoughts toward the end of our conversation today. It is not a surprise, however, it is always noteworthy. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers was not in attendance for the Packers' 5th OTA. They're not mandatory, in fact, they are totally voluntary. However, it is noteworthy that Rodgers has been a regular participant in OTAs and the offseason program in general in years past. However, next week, that all changes. June 8th is the first day of the mandatory minicamp, and Rodgers can be fined up to $93,000 if he does not attend. Ryan, that's not a lot of money to Aaron Rodgers. It's a lot of money to you and me, and it would probably be more of a surprise if he did show up than if he didn't show up. What should fans make of it if Rodgers doesn't show up?
That it must be nice to live in a world where $93,000 is not worth a few days' work, right? I would work a few days for $93,000. Very little. The big date is going to be training camp because $93,000 isn't a lot for Aaron Rodgers. And Matt LaFleur was asked point blank this twice today. First time, the initial question and the follow-up, as directly as he could possibly be asked, and he did not say yes. He did not say that he expects Aaron Rodgers to be at minicamp, because I don't think anybody does. If you do, there's like some really nice oceanside property in Kansas that I can sell to you. So, no, that's not going to happen. I imagine everyone else will be there, but it would be stunning if Aaron Rodgers was actually at minicamp. The big question, it's all full steam ahead to training camp late July, whether they'll be at that.
In the meantime, quarterback Jordan Love is the guy, as tight end Robert Tonyan said in practice these past couple of weeks. He is taking all of the first team reps ahead of quarterbacks Blake Bortles and Kurt Benkert. It's early, obviously, in the offseason. There's no pads, there's no contact. However, that being said, what is head coach Matt LaFleur looking for in Jordan Love to show that he's taken some steps from year 1 to year 2?
Running the offense. Mastery, ownership of the offense. And I'll tell you, Olivia, the thing that stood out to me, look, we haven't seen any Aaron Rodgers-like plays. We did kind of see an Aaron Rodgers-like interception today. What I mean by that is that Jordan Love was picked off today by Kabion Into on a pass that he hit a check down and hit his receiver squarely in the hands, and it bounced off his hands. And tell me where you've heard this before. It bounced off his hands and into the cornerback's hands. When Aaron Rodgers throws a pick, that's basically how it's done. So, I mean, he's learned everything. We also saw a little hard count from Jordan Love today. That was – I don't know if he got his offensive line to jump maybe even more than his defensive line, but that was still pretty familiar. But, look, what reminds me of Aaron Rodgers maybe the most last offseason, do you remember when last offseason Aaron Rodgers came into the OTAs and he was hitting checkdowns? I mean, he was just taking the underneath stuff. And that's something we hadn't seen from Aaron Rodgers for a few years. It's been a minute since we've seen that. And all of a sudden, he's hitting his underneath receivers. He's hitting those checkdowns. And it was showing that he'd really progressed in the offense. It was a precursor of what became an MVP season. He hit his checkdowns a ton all last fall. He hit the big plays too, but there was a lot more checkdowns in 2020 from Aaron Rodgers you saw in previous seasons. It's been reminiscent because Jordan Love has hit a lot of checkdowns through the 2 open OTA sessions, a lot more than he did last year. While he hasn't had any wild throws, I do think he's shown like he's more comfortable. The offense has slowed down for him. We'll just have to see in the competitive periods once they get the pads on in camp what it looks like then. And then obviously the preseason games. That's when we'll really have a good idea of whether he's feeling the rush, whether he's able to make those tight window competitive throws, things that we don't get to see when they're in shorts.
The past month has been characterized by largely not so positive news surrounding Aaron Rodgers. So let's change the pace a little bit and introduce some good news. Left tackle David Bakhtiari was present at practice today, and although he was not actively participating in individual drills or in team drills, he was off to the side doing some rehab work in the rehab group. Bakhtiari was not present at the one OTA that was open to the media this past week, so this was our first time actually getting a look at him since he tore his ACL just just about 5 months ago. When can Packers fans expect to see Bakhtiari back in action?
He looked pretty good today, and Matt LaFleur dropped a little indication that he's ahead of schedule. He said it's still obviously one day at a time and all those other cliches, but he's ahead of schedule. We don't know how ahead of schedule, and like Matt LaFleur said today, there's a long way to go before week 1. So David Bakhtiari is going to start training camp on the PU. It would be a stunning shock if he was not on the physically unable to perform list. That means that the Packers obviously have roster flexibility with him because they can carry him onto their active roster going into the season without counting on the 53. So we'll have to see if the big question really with him is whether or not he's activated from the PUP in training camp, where he can still make that initial 53 or not, and he's going to have to miss more weeks. But he looked good on that knee today, and he was not chugging any beer. So, it's a very hard-working David Bakhtiari right now.
Let's head over to Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube for some of your comments right now. Thank you so much for all of your lovely questions. I can see some good ones in there already. Let's start with Tyler on YouTube. Tyler says that it wants to know if we think that cornerback Jaire Alexander or wide receiver Davante Adams or another receiver who has been missing, and there's been several receivers missing from OTAs over the last 2 weeks, will they show up next Tuesday at OTAs? Seeing as $93,000 may not be a lot of money to Aaron Rodgers. However, it may be more money to some of the other players on the team. How likely is it that Jaire Alexander, Davante Adams, any of the wide receivers like Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Equanimeous St. Brown, so on and so forth, show up for the mandatory minicamp next week?
The mandatory minicamp, they're all. I think everyone will be at the mandatory stuff. Keyword being mandatory, not voluntary, as in the OTAs. Jaire Alexander has zero reason to be at an OTA. He's an all-pro, and there is no workout bonus in his contract. Davante Adams has 500,000 reasons. That's his workout bonus that he is skipping. So, two very different situations from the voluntary point of view. But when it comes to mandatory, I think you're going to see 89 players there, and we all know who that one who is very unlikely not to be there is.
Thanks, Tyler, for your question. Let's go over to our friend Jordan on Facebook. Good to see you, Jordan. Jordan says that it seems like Matt LaFleur used tight end Josiah DeGuara a lot before his injury early last year, and with his return and Robert Tonyan coming out party last season, is Jay Sternberger running out of time to show his worth? Jay Sternberger started off last season not on the right foot by catching COVID, unfortunately, and then later in the season dealt with some other injuries, a concussion at some point. Now he is finally back at full strength in practice. How much more time does Sternberger in his third year have to prove that he is worth something to this Packers roster?
Well, he's 2 years through a 4-year rookie contract, so you start with that. Look, you can have 4 tight ends on a roster. It's just that your 4th tight end, he damn well better play special teams, because if he doesn't, it's tough to make the roster. I think Jay Sternberger's pretty solid for making the 53. The question is, where's his role offensively? Josiah DeGuara and Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis are all 3 very, very different players. DeGuara's got that move that he can go to the backfield, lead blocker, fullback, H-back, can do the tight end stuff as well. Tonyan is your move guy. He's going to be a receiver. You move him across the formation. He can line up in line. Did quite a bit last year. Was a better blocker, but he's a receiver first. Lewis is your in-line guy. He's the guy that you're going to have as your and this is a role that Matt LaFleur values a lot as offense, your classic blocking tight end. If you look at those 3 styles, they're all, those are the 3 classic styles that you have in tight end. Jay Sternberger is much more the move guy. He's much more the receiver than he is anything else. He's shown an ability to block. It's not that he can't block, but that's what he was drafted to do. That's what Robert Tonyan does. So you can have 2 of those guys in your offense for sure, but if they don't, that Robert Tonyan has that role locked down, and it's a long uphill battle for Jay Sternberger to find a role offensively on this team.
Thank you, Jordan, for your question. Let's go over to Unk over on Facebook. They want to know, do you think the inside linebackers are ready to make a year two splash to make Green Bay a solid defense? If you look at the inside linebacker position right now, the two starters are likely going to be Chris Barnes and Kamal Martin. Barnes has provided tremendous value to the Packers as an undrafted free agent who was signed this past season, and he was very quickly, he was the one wearing the green dot on the field, the communication helmet, and coordinating essentially the defense on the field himself, and he was able to play through the playoffs with a broken finger. When you look at those two inside linebackers specifically, what more do they need to show in order to prove that they are a solid tandem at starter?
Well, just continued growth and development and maturation in the defense. It was interesting today that Ty Summers was getting those first team reps over Kamal Martin. He was the guy that was next to Chris Barnes. So Ty Summers is a guy maybe not to forget. Oren Burks is back to rotating there and working there inside linebacker. Ty Summers and Oren Burks are primarily special teams players right now, which is important. That's a job on the 53. They'll both be there because of that. But it's just two young guys in Martin and Barnes who need to just get a little older and to just grow a little and kind of build off of, especially for Barnes, was a really solid rookie year, and Kamal Martin, when healthy, has shown that he's got those flashes as well.
Let's continue our conversation on the defense with another question. Let's go over to Chase on Facebook. Chase wants to know if cornerback Eric Stokes is Josh Jackson 2.0. Lots of draft stuff out there about him being grabby. Have you seen that? Eric Stokes has been widely heralded because of his incredible speed. He ran a 4.25 40 at his unofficial pro day, combine, what have you. How does his skill set translate onto the field, and does he have the potential to be a starter in this Packers defense? Well,
Josh Jackson ran 4.5. Eric Stokes ran a quarter second faster than that, which in the 40, I mean, that's a lot in the 40. It's a quarter second's insane. So, no, that's not a comparison I would make. Eric Stokes is he's very raw still. I mean, he's young, right? He's only had 4 seasons playing full-time corner. It wasn't until his junior year of high school that he played any corner, and even still, he was primarily running back. It was his senior year of high school where he switched to full-time corner, and then he had 3 years at Georgia with 2 different defensive back coaches. So he hasn't played corner his whole life. He is very green at that position. He's also 4.25 40. That's when you're starting there. That's your start off point. It's a heck of a place to be starting. So, that's not a comparison I make. Look, I think that ultimately you're going to see them find a way to get their top 3 corners on the field, and that should absolutely be Jair Alexander, Kevin King, and Eric Stokes. Shannon Sullivan is still getting the slot corner reps right now, and certainly I think he's going to have a role on defense. He's a guy that, too, he's played some safety when he first got here from Philadelphia as well, so he can drop back and maybe give some depth there as well. He's got some versatility in the secondary, but your top 3 corners are Jair Alexander, Kevin King, Eric Stokes, and some order behind Alexander for the last 2. You want to get your top 3 corners on the field.
Thank you, Chase, for your question. Let's go over to Joshua on Facebook. Joshua wants to know, how is the rookie defensive tackle TJ Slaton looking? Slaton, speaking of mind-blowing stats, we talked a little bit about Eric Stokes. TJ Slaton is a big guy, 6'4", 330 pounds. He certainly stands out on the field, even among the defensive tackle group. We haven't gotten to see a ton of him in any significant action yet. However, when you see a player like him, of his caliber, of his size, what type of role can he play on that Packers defensive line?
Space eater, a blocker consumer, a guy that can help in the run game for sure. I don't know how much he has in the pass rush game, and right now it's impossible to tell because the way he looks right now is that he's wearing shorts. Until they get the pads on late July and strap them up and start hitting a little bit, it's going to be really tough to tell anything from the defensive line or the offensive line for that matter. But he's a big guy. He's a big human being, and big human beings are very nice commodities to have on your defensive line. So, yeah, it certainly, even if it's just as an athletic run defender at the start, he's a guy that could have some small role in your base defense early in the season, perhaps.
Thank you, Joshua, for your question. Now let's go over to Mike for a question that I think we'll be answering absolutely every single week until the first.
Is it about Aaron Rodgers?
How did you guess, Ryan?
Wow.
Mike wants to know the golden question. Rodgers sits, or is he going to be traded? Who do you say starts at quarterback for game one? Let's just tackle the first part of this question, because I suppose there could be multiple answers to multiple parts of this question. At this point in the offseason, we're past June 1st. Rodgers is still on the team. He is not present at the offseason program. How likely do you think it is that Rodgers starts week one for the Green Bay Packers?
I need a crystal ball for this, Olivia. I mean, this seat is getting really hot. I'm on the hot seat here. Take a coin and flip it, and there you go. Heads, he's the week one starter. Tails, it's Jordan Love. I think it's about 50-50. I have no idea how that's going to end. I have no clue. I'm not going to pretend like I have any idea. Look, they're in a staring contest, the team and the quarterback. One of them is going to have to blink. This is not something that is tenable long term. Something is going to have to change. It is either they will trade him, or it is that he will play for them. The door is wide open for him to come back. He has actually left that door wide open. When he was on ESPN with Kenny Mayne, he could have retired. He did not. He could have said something much stronger when he said, when Kenny Mayne asked him, are you demanding a trade? He did not say yes. He did not wipe away the idea that there's a rift here. It's pretty clear there is. So something's going to have to change. There's a long time. It's not going to be over anytime soon. We're so early in this. I have no idea. What do you think, Olivia? Yes or no?
You're flipping the hot seat right back over to me. I am right there with you, Ryan. I think patience is a virtue. We'll find out next week, while June 8th should be a date that is circled on your calendar as the date that it is required for Aaron Rodgers to be present at the offseason program. I would not say it is a date, as I wrote in my story 30 minutes ago that I just filed. It is not a date that you should be circling in permanent marker. If Rodgers does not show up next week, that does not mean all is lost, that he's not coming back. Aaron Rodgers can afford $93,000 to not show up to mandatory minicamp and to continue the staring contest, I suppose. I like that phrase, Ryan. I like how you put that. I think he can afford to do so, and he can afford to continue that staring contest to training camp when those fines will start to ramp up. So there is time. Patience is a virtue. A need to maybe not overreact. I think it's good news that he didn't say, yes, he's looking for a trade. Maybe not so good news that he didn't deny it. So
he left that door open. He could have retired. I mean, I that was my first take. We already knew there was an issue. We knew that. That was not news. We knew that. The question was how strongly he would confirm that issue, up to the point of, there's no chance in the world that I'm coming back. I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm Barry Sanders. I'm walking out the door. Toodaloo. He didn't do that. So if he didn't do that, it leaves the door open for him to return. I have no idea.
The door is open. Will he walk through it? That is the golden question. The door is open for him next week. He may not be walking through the door next week. Ryan and I will be walking through the door, so you can expect to see us at mandatory minicamp.
You know why, Olivia? Because $93,000 is a lot of money for us. That's why.
We're not getting paid $93,000 to go to mandatory minicamp. Although, hey, if someone wants to do so, let me know. That would be fine with me. Anyway, that is going to do it for us today, everyone. Thank you, as always, for joining us. As I mentioned, Ryan and I will be back next week to continue our discussion of Rodgers and the offseason program, Jordan Love's development as the Packers kick off mandatory minicamp on Tuesday. For Ryan Wood, I am Olivia Reiner. We will see you next time.